You are probably focusing on the wrong thing after every meal. Most people worry about what's on their plate, but almost nobody pays attention to what happens in the 30 minutes after they finish eating. And for adults over 50 trying to control blood sugar, this small window may be one of the most important moments of the entire day. Because the biggest glucose spikes often don't happen while you're eating, they happen after the last bite, when most people do something that quietly makes their blood sugar worse. Dr. Rubio Santner from Metabolic Health Simplified reviewed the latest research on post-meal habits, and what he found was surprising. There are 4 simple things that can help your body handle glucose better in those critical minutes after eating, and 4 everyday habits that may be quietly undoing your progress without you ever realizing it. Pay close attention to number 5, because for many people watching this, that one habit is happening every single day, and nobody's ever told them why it matters. Before we begin, tell me this: what is the first thing you usually do after finishing a meal? Now, let's get into number 1. Number 1. There's a window after every meal that most doctors never mention during a standard checkup. Not about what you ate, not about medication, not about carb counts. It's about a narrow biological corridor, 10 to 30 minutes after your last bite, when your body decides where all that incoming glucose goes. And the most powerful tool here costs nothing and needs no equipment. It's a walk. Not long, not fast, just a walk. Here's the part most people get wrong. They think, I already walk in the evenings. I'm covered. But timing changes everything. Research from the American Diabetes Association and JAMA Internal Medicine tracked post-meal glucose curves in adults aged 50 to 75, and a short walk taken within 30 minutes of eating clears glucose far more effectively than the exact same walk taken 2 hours later. Think of your bloodstream after a meal like a highway suddenly flooded with 3 times the normal traffic. A walk during that window opens an extra lane. Your muscles start pulling glucose directly out of the blood for fuel, easing the jam before it backs up. Wait until evening, and you're opening that lane after the crash has already happened. Some research tracking these patterns shows a 10-minute walk after eating can lower your glucose response by 20 to 30% compared to remaining sedentary. For someone managing prediabetes, that consistent timing can shift their 2-hour readings over weeks and months. So, here's the move. After breakfast, lunch, and dinner, set a soft 10-minute timer and step outside. It doesn't need to be brisk. A conversational pace is enough. Not intensity, timing. And that one idea, timing, runs through everything else on this list. Number 2, your muscles are not just there for lifting things. They are, in fact, the single largest glucose disposal organ in your entire body. After every meal, they're either actively pulling sugar out of your blood or sitting completely idle while your pancreas handles the whole load alone. The mechanism is a protein called GLUT4, glucose transporter type 4. Under normal resting conditions, it sits quietly inside your muscle cells, essentially off duty. But the moment a muscle contracts, even gently, even briefly, those transporters rush to the cell surface and open up like receiving docks, pulling glucose straight out of the blood. No extra insulin needed. Research from Harvard Medical School and the Journal of Applied Physiology found this pathway works largely independent of insulin signaling. That matters hugely if you have insulin resistance, because your muscles can still clear glucose even when your insulin response is sluggish or impaired. You're essentially bypassing the traffic jam instead of waiting for it to clear. Think of it as a side door into a warehouse. Insulin is the main loading dock, sometimes slow, sometimes backed up. Muscle contraction opens a side door directly and moves the inventory without waiting in line. You don't need a gym for this. No treadmill, nothing intense. Seated calf raises, gentle chair squats, standing heel lifts, right in your kitchen. 5 to 7 minutes, is enough to trigger meaningful glucose uptake, and most adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s can do it without any joint strain. So, if a walk isn't possible, bad weather, mobility issues, a packed schedule, a few minutes of light movement right where you are still works just as well. Your muscles are always ready to act as a glucose sink. The only question is whether you give them the signal. Number 3 is something completely different, something you can do without moving a single muscle. Number 3. This one surprises people the most, because nobody thinks about their breath when they think about blood sugar. They think about movement, medication, or what was on the plate. But what your nervous system does in the minutes right after a meal directly affects how aggressively your blood sugar climbs and how efficiently it comes back down. Your body runs on 2 settings, the sympathetic state, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic state, rest and digest. That second name isn't random. It's literally named for its role in digestion. When you're calm and breathing slowly after eating, your body shifts into that mode. The pancreas releases insulin more efficiently, digestion runs smoothly, and cortisol stays in check. Now think about what most of us actually do after a meal. We grab the phone, scroll the news, jump straight back into a tense conversation. Every one of those nudges your body back toward fight or flight, and cortisol, the stress hormone, is one of the most potent drivers of post-meal glucose elevation that exists. The Mayo Clinic and research in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology both link elevated post-meal cortisol to prolonged glucose spikes and lower insulin sensitivity in older adults. Picture your metabolism as a processing plant. It runs best when the building is calm and the workers are steady. Cortisol is the fire alarm going off mid-shift, and everything halts while resources get redirected to the emergency. Diaphragmatic breathing, slow, deep belly breathing, is one of the fastest, most clinically validated ways to flip that switch back to calm. Just 4 to 7 minutes of intentional slow breathing can measurably lower cortisol output and support a more regulated insulin response. Here's how. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4. Let your belly expand fully. Then exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this quietly at the table for a few minutes after eating. No equipment, no cost, no physical exertion. This matters even more as we age, because cortisol dysregulation tends to intensify over time. A few quiet minutes after eating can quietly compound into real, measurable improvement over weeks and months. Coming up next, a habit involving cold water that works through a nerve most people have never even heard of. Number 4. This is the one that gets the most eye rolls until people understand the science behind it. It sounds too simple to matter, but this isn't folklore. It's grounded in autonomic nervous system physiology that researchers at places like Johns Hopkins Medicine have studied for decades. The habit? A glass of plain, cool water within 15 to 20 minutes after eating. Not ice water specifically, not a brand, not an infusion, just cool, plain water. The mechanism is your vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in your body, running from your brainstem all the way down through your chest and into your pancreas. It's the main communication highway of your rest and digest system. And vagal tone, how well activated that nerve is, directly affects how well your pancreas times its insulin release. Research from Johns Hopkins Medicine and the Autonomic Neuroscience Journal shows strong vagal tone produces a faster, more robust early insulin response, the cephalic phase response, which helps blunt the steepest part of your glucose spike before it even fully builds. Think of the vagus nerve like a phone line between your brain and your pancreas. Strong signal, fast response. Weak signal, which is common with insulin resistance and chronic stress, and the message arrives late, with the pancreas lagging behind the glucose surge. Cool water stimulates receptors in your throat and upper digestive tract that feed directly into this pathway, reinforcing that calm, rest and digest state, exactly when your body needs it most. There's a bonus too. Proper hydration supports your kidneys in clearing excess circulating glucose. Even mild dehydration, common in adults over 50, can meaningfully blunt this clearance process. So, keep a glass of cool water at the table and finish it slowly within 15 minutes of eating. Make it a quiet, consistent ritual rather than an afterthought. The cumulative effect on vagal tone and glucose clearance adds up over time. Now we flip the list. Numbers 5 through 8 aren't things to add. They're things quietly working against you every single day, often without you noticing. And for a lot of you watching, number 5 is going to feel uncomfortably familiar. Number 5. For most adults in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, the routine after a meal looks the same. Finish eating, carry the plate to the sink, walk to the living room, sit down, maybe the TV, maybe the phone, maybe just rest because the meal itself was tiring. It feels normal, earned even. Nobody ever told you it was a problem. But here's what's happening in your body the moment you sit down and stay still. Your biggest muscle groups, quads, hamstrings, glutes, go almost completely silent from a metabolic standpoint. Remember those GLUT 4 transporters from number 2? Without muscle contraction to summon them to the surface, they stay dormant. The glucose from your meal has nowhere efficient to go. Your pancreas is left to handle the entire load alone. And for anyone with even mild insulin resistance, that compensation is already compromised. The CDC and the journal Diabetes Care have both tracked this in older adults. Prolonged sitting right after eating is consistently linked to higher 2-hour glucose readings, and over time, progressively worse fasting glucose levels. Every meal is basically a metabolic test. Sitting down right after is like taking that test with one hand tied behind your back. You've removed your single best glucose clearing tool at the exact moment you need it most. This isn't about guilt. The couch isn't the enemy. Rest isn't the enemy. Timing is. Even 2 to 3 minutes of standing or light movement every 20 minutes can shift your glucose response meaningfully. The bar is genuinely low. What makes this dangerous is the compounding. One sitting session after one meal, nothing. But 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, year after year, that's how fasting numbers and HbA1c quietly creep up until one day it shows up as a diagnosis that feels like it came out of nowhere. It didn't come from nowhere. It came from afternoons on the couch, one at a time. The next danger combines 2 habits that feel completely harmless on their own into something far more damaging when you put them together. It's an after-dinner pattern millions of people follow every single night without ever connecting it to their morning numbers. There's a sequence a lot of people in this age group genuinely love. Finish dinner. Have something sweet, a cookie, some fruit, a little something comforting. Then settle into the recliner or head to bed early because the day was long. It feels like a reward. It feels like balance. What it actually is, for someone managing insulin resistance, is one of the most damaging combinations you can repeat night after night. Here's why timing matters so much. Dessert adds a second glucose surge right as your dinner curve was starting to plateau. Then you lie down, reclining, or falling asleep, and the body's response to horizontal rest right after eating compounds the problem in a very specific, well-documented way. Research from Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health shows glucose clearance slows meaningfully during early sleep onset, especially after a high-carb evening meal. As your body winds down for sleep, metabolic rate drops, muscle glucose uptake falls, and growth hormone begins its nightly cycle, temporarily lowering insulin sensitivity. That late dessert lands in a system that's slowing down and getting less insulin sensitive at the same time, so more of it gets pushed toward fat storage instead of being used for energy. Think of it like depositing a large check at a bank that's already closing for the night. The transaction still happens, just under very different after-hours conditions. This isn't never eat dessert. It's about the gap between eating and lying down. Leave a minimum of 2 to 3 hours between your last carbs and sleep, and your body gets the active time it needs to clear that glucose through normal daytime channels. Even just moving dessert earlier or going lighter on it closer to bedtime can noticeably improve your morning fasting numbers within a few weeks of consistent practice. Your morning glucose isn't just about what you ate for breakfast. It's a report card on everything that happened metabolically the night before. And dessert then nap is one of the most common reasons that report card disappoints, leaving people confused about why their numbers stay stubbornly high despite a solid day of eating. Number 7. By now you've probably noticed a pattern. The post-meal window isn't just digestive, it's a full system metabolic event, and it's extremely sensitive to what's happening around you. Nowhere is that more exploited than the habit of grabbing a screen the second the fork goes down. This isn't about screen time in general. It's about what stressful content does to your cortisol during the exact window your body is most vulnerable to glucose dysregulation. When you read a stressful email or scroll alarming headlines within 30 minutes of eating, your stress system, the HPA axis, your body's central stress response, registers a threat. It doesn't know the difference between a real danger and a bad headline. The chemical response is the same. Cortisol rises, adrenaline follows, and both tell your liver to dump stored glucose into your blood immediately to fuel the emergency. It happens fast, and it happens quietly. Most people never connect a tense conversation or a stressful inbox to their glucose monitor reading high an hour later. The Mayo Clinic and research in psychoneuroendocrinology have tracked this directly. Acute stress events in the post-meal period produce a secondary glucose spike that has nothing to do with what you ate. You could eat a perfect, portion-controlled, low-glycemic meal, and a stressful news cycle right after can still push your 2-hour reading into problematic territory. Picture your liver as an emergency fuel reserve. Calm after a meal, it stays quiet while your body processes the meal itself. Hit it with a cortisol spike, and it floods a bloodstream that's already busy. 2 glucose sources arriving at once, when your body only prepared for one. This hits harder as we age, because cortisol regulation naturally gets less efficient over time. The curve flattens and prolongs, so the spike lasts longer than it would have decades ago. The fix is simple. Make the 30 minutes after each meal a low stimulation window. Not a productivity window, not a news window, a recovery window. Soft conversation, calm music, a short walk, slow breathing. Anything that keeps your stress system quiet while your body does its job. The emails will still be there in 30 minutes. Your glucose window won't. Number 8. Every habit we've discussed in this video has one hidden enemy. Not laziness, not lack of knowledge, not even bad intentions. I'll start tomorrow. Because insulin resistance doesn't appear overnight. It's not a diagnosis that shows up after one bad meal or one lazy afternoon. It builds quietly through thousands of small choices repeated over time, each one individually harmless, collectively devastating. And the biggest missed opportunity happens after every single meal. That short window after eating decides how much glucose stays elevated and how much your body can actually handle. Sitting still after meals, stress, repeated poor routines. They may seem harmless today, but over months and years, those small moments add up into something much bigger. Think of it like a slow leak in your metabolic health. You don't notice it on any given day. You notice it years later, in a fasting number that feels like it appeared out of nowhere. But here's the good news. The same way small negative habits build insulin resistance, small positive habits can rebuild your metabolism. The compounding effect works in both directions. A short walk, better timing, a little movement, a few quiet minutes after eating, consistency, repeated meal after meal. Your next meal is not just another meal, it is your next opportunity. Not tomorrow, your next bite. So here's what matters most. After every meal, Your body gets a short metabolic window, and what you do during that time can change your glucose response. A simple walk, a little muscle movement, calm breathing, a glass of cool water. Small choices that tell your body to handle blood sugar better. But the opposite is also true. Sitting after meals, stress, late-night habits, and the mindset of, "I'll start tomorrow," quietly push your metabolism in the wrong direction, 3 times a day, every single day. You don't need a complete lifestyle reset. You don't need to overhaul every meal you eat. You need consistency. 30 intentional minutes after your meals, applied again and again, can become one of the most powerful habits for your metabolic health, starting with the very next meal you eat. I'm Dr. Rubio Santner from Metabolic Health Simplified. My goal with every video on this channel is to bring you practical, science-backed strategies that help you take back control, one meal at a time. If this helped you, subscribe, because the next video reveals why your blood sugar may be rising while you sleep, and why your morning numbers stay stubbornly high even when you do everything right during the day. Watch that next.